what's that, a close-up of? This is our 14th.
So welcome, everyone. Session number 14 is October 5th. We took last year off. We hope everyone had a good holiday who celebrated it. Tonight's agenda, the usual. We'll do a Q&A. We've got a couple people who are hoping we'll do weekly updates, some of whom have been asked and some of whom haven't. The announcements are really light. Oh, and I didn't change this. Discussions won't be favorite garden tools. It will be end of season planning and getting your beds ready for winter. Okay, so we had Gail submitted a couple questions, and I don't have pictures for these, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and ask. So, Gail, why don't you go ahead and ask them? We can't hear you on mute, Gail.
I don't have that much precious compost that I've made over the summer. Do I spread it now or do I wait till the spring on my beds? When do I put down my compost?
Anyone? No opinions here?
My guess is that I would put it down in the spring because the plants aren't going to grow, and in the winter the rain will go through the compost and take nutrients down further, and so it might weaken the strength of the compost. I would think you'd want to put it, when you plant your plants, so that the roots get a burst of activity in the spring. Okay,
sold. The other question I have is, what was it? Something about ground cover. Is this the time to put down ground cover?
A cover crop?
Cover crop, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, is it? I mean, I think it's okay to put a little compost now and then also spring. I would think. No, that's what I do.
No, I think both is good, but Gail said she had a very limited amount.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
So that's why I agree with the limited amount. I would save it to put around the plants that need it the most in the spring.
Okay.
Unless you want to go out and buy some.
No.
I don't think so.
What about getting some from the village of Warwick? How do we feel about getting some precious compost from there to supplement our precious supplies that we made ourselves at home?
No, the compost they made this year, I think is pretty good. So, I mean, you know where that is, Gail, right?
No, I'm not sure.
You know, Memorial Park.
Yeah.
Do you live in the village?
No, I live in the town.
Okay. Well, anybody can go to the compost pile. It's where you go back to the ball fields where the skateboard park is on the left, and on the right is the brush pile, where of course you can't enter if you're not a village resident, God forbid. But right on your way in there's two big concrete block holders, and that's where the compost is. You just drive up there. I take some bins, some bins, and I fill them up and I bring it home. If you have a trailer, better yet.
I've always been concerned, do they have grass cuttings, things where they've put down pesticides or other no-nos?
I don't know.
I think it's leaves mostly.
Yeah.
And wood chips.
Mostly leaves? Okay.
Wood chips, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
My question is, why aren't you continuing to make compost in the winter? We make compost in the winter.
I do, but not much happens. I do make compost all winter.
It's amazing how it breaks down, right? Like you think, you just keep on putting food and then it gets shrinks. But I would add that if you, not particularly to what you're saying, but if someone does want to do something like lay down a large amount of manure or, start some new beds, I would think now is a good time. But in your situation, right, like Bill said, wait to spring since you just have a limited amount. But if you were starting some new beds and you really wanted something to break down over a long period of time, I would say to get it in now.
Well, you can also do what we do, which is just burying things in the ground. If you have extra compost. You can just, if you have an empty bed, you can bury things, fruit and vegetables, leavings and so forth in the beds themselves.
Oh,
You might need to put a little, chicken wire or something over the top so that raccoons don't get into it, don't dig it up.
oh, okay, that's a good idea. I never thought of that.
It's fine.
May I interject just a bit? A way to stretch a limited supply of compost is I often make it into compost tea. I mix it with water and then water my plants, right? And that stretches it when I'm really new. So my compost supply is fairly small at this point also, but it stretches way longer or way farther when I do that. And also I would say it depends on what you want to compost, whether it's fall or spring, because a lot of plants are going to take the nutrients down into the roots at this time of year. So depending on what you're doing, there may be a little bit of a difference. Some plants might take it more nicely in the autumn than the spring.
Perennials.
Another idea is that, our workers in the village will be putting their leaves in bags and setting them out by the curb for you to take. I refer to them as our workers in their village. They're actually the homeowners. But all of those leaves in bags, and it's especially nice if you sort of know somebody and you just make sure that they don't use chemicals on their lawns. So I sort of drive around I live actually just outside the village. And so I know some of the people who live sort of close to me, and they're always okay for me taking the leaves. I sometimes return the bags to the owners. Yeah, that's a good relationship when you return
Nice.
the bags.
Yeah, really.
But a lot of people say, I don't want them back. I don't know, I guess where you live on a different planet.
Well, if they're back, you can compost them, right, Michael?
Actually, I use them for sheet mulching projects.
Yeah.
They make a great layer for a sheet mulch.
I would just add on to that. I live in the village, and a lot of my leaves, I have a place I can put them without going through the bagging process, but some of them out by the street, I bag. But I also weed at the same time, so there's usually weed seeds in with my leaves. So you want to make sure you're finding leaves that are only leaves.
Yeah, good point.
And do you shred them or you just use the leaves whole?
Oh, I mow them as long as possible. And then a lot of them I just put into a tarp, and there's a little place down on the other, it's not exactly my property, but there's weeds there, so I dump them there. And then I also put them in a tarp and take them over to the brush pile, because putting them in paper bags is a pain in the butt.
But do as little work as possible.
When I get those leaves, if they're nice and dry and easy to shred, I'll shred them. If they're wet, I'll just stack them and let them do what they want. And last year I got a lot of acorns in my leaf bags and other, yeah.
How do you shred, Michael? Do you use a machine or do you do it by hand?
I've got an electric, plug-inable leaf blower, and when it runs in reverse, it sucks up the leaves and shreds them into a bag for me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's a Toro leaf blower.
Well, Linda, how would you do it by hand? Just like
Oh, I'm not. This is my first year through, okay, because I would clean up all my leaves, okay, and then this year I have been instructed that I am to leave everything down, and I know there are going to be too many, so I've been looking at the things that you throw the leaves in. I did purchase something last year, and it was ridiculous. The opening was like, I don't know, 6 inches in diameter. And I thought, yeah, I can chew the leaves quicker than do this. So, so something with a leaf blower, that could be pretty cool. Well, I'm going to use the leaf blower. I figure if they just get over the gardens, even if they're whole, as long as they don't get too mildewy. Does anybody have experience with that?
Well,
With the Just
My
leaving the
first-
leaves whole?
I have like giant maple trees everywhere, so I have a massive amount of leaves. When I first lived here, I was like really, crazed. Every weekend I bagged leaves. I used a device like you did. It was like unbelievably a lot of work. So now I've got it down to pull them up together and run the lawnmower over them very fast with a lawnmower, and then rake that up, and you have shredded leaves.
And you've got shredded. Okay, cool.
Much faster. But if you use large maple or oak leaves, for example, whole, they really compact down. They don't, it takes them quite a while. I leave them on my perennial flower beds for protection and take those up in the spring.
And you leave them whole on your perennial beds? Or
Yeah.
you shred? Yeah, well,
I'm taking them off in the spring. They're helping to protect the perennials from
right.
freezing and thawing.
Okay, so that was my plan, because that's basically what it is their perennial beds. All I have is paths. I have no more lawn. And so
I don't blow extras on. I just leave what's there. The
yeah,
stuff in the yard I take up.
right. Well, what I figure I'll blow what I've got over everything, so that way it'll be dispersed.
There you
And then
go.
I'll assess it in the spring. That's all. I got reprimanded for cleaning my leaves in the spring. That's organic
my.
matter. Yes, you should
Oh,
leave
my.
it there. So we'll see how I will do as you advise, and then I'll see what the spring brings.
I'm in agreement. I do the exact same thing. I have a lot of perennial beds, and I take the leaves and I make a blanket over all the perennial beds, and it works out really well. And then I accumulate piles and piles of the leaves because I use them for the composting in the summer. So I like all that brown material to put in the compost. So hold on to it.
So you take them off in the spring and put it into your compost bed.
Mm-hmm.
Compost.
But even in the fall, I keep some in just piles near the compost,
Right.
so that I can shovel it into the compost as I add vegetables throughout the winter.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And I try not to, I try to leave a lot on my lawn. Well, you don't have any lawn, but like whatever I have, I just try to, like starting October, I just don't touch any leaves that I can. I figure there's creatures and stuff.
Let them stay. Yeah.
Yeah, let them stay there.
That was my plan, but they're going to be, piled obviously under the trees. So
Right. Yeah. I rake it when it gets crazy, but I try to leave a lot because I figure there's some animal critters growing there or ecosystems forming.
Yes. Now, all of you, may I ask a question? I feel like I'm
Yes.
in person, so I should shut up. But
No.
all of you have been composting. Now, I was told somehow I'm supposed to get that compost pile up to 140 degrees to kill the weed seeds. How in God's name am I supposed to do that? I mean, yeah.
Well,
Anybody?
if you have a small, that's hard. You need a larger pile. If it's just you individually, that's difficult to. You're going to have to do a much longer composting process.
Okay, so
the
yeah,
cold
like
processing.
water and turning, but I'm going, okay, it's not going.
Yeah,
to
no,
the-
we're talking like, a community garden, something where you get a big pile.
Okay,
And then it gets very hot. But smaller piles, you just have to leave it for a much longer time.
okay, thank you again.
No, that's why I bury our compost from the kitchen directly into the garden, into an unused area, and let it sit for a few weeks and then plant. And because it's hard to get enough composting material together to have a big compost heap. And that seems to work fine. In the winter, it doesn't decay so much, but in the warmer weather, literally in a week or two, you look for the stuff you buried and it's gone. The worms have feasted. So
Something's feasted.
or something is
A friend of mine who lives sort of off the grid refers to that as direct deposit. That composting method of digging it right into the dirt, direct deposit.
Ah,
I
But
tried that. My poodle puppy thought it was really great and dug huge holes all over the bed.
Right. Right. Depends what you have. If you have squirrels or dogs or, that won't work too well.
I've got them right. I've got no dogs, squirrels, dogs, chipmunks, right? Or squirrels, chipmunks, woodchucks. Yeah.
Yeah, they will probably dig that up.
Yeah, I would be careful with the woodchucks.
They're horrible, horrible.
Folks, I want to share the screen again and ask another question. I've got 2 questions, and this is for me. So last time Shannon joined us, and you know, we really like to eat lamb's quarters in the spring, and that is a lamb's quarter plant. That's I'm so sort of getting adjusted to this. I took that today. I mean, it's a tall plant, and on the left are actually there's seeds from 2 different plants. If somebody wanted some of those lamb's quarter seeds, are those seeds ready? How would you know
I
if
have
the seeds are mature?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I have them. I have them still drying. I haven't attempted to take them at all yet. Do you want me to go check them now?
Looking at them, how would you know?
I would try and extract a seed. I'll go do it right now, Michael.
Okay.
Look at this live action. Very exciting.
So this, the lamb's quarters, I think Alexander talked about that in a previous one, but this is mine, and I've got 2 kinds. One is sometimes called magenta spring, and the other is regular. And in the spring, if you get a big bunch of it, it's better than spinach. I like it. It's really good. And there's something else we grow, and again, I'm asking if the seeds are ready. So, and this I took this picture today. So here on the right is our okra. This is purple amaranth.
Mm-hmm.
And again, those are the seeds. I'm wondering, you know, if somebody wanted to come visit me, and anybody's welcome to come visit me, and took a handful of, because all of this stuff planted itself last year. We didn't plant a single bit of that. That all, you know, replanted itself, self-seeded. Let's see, you can see back here, our bean trellis is still going. That did not self-seed. And the okra, of course, we planted ourselves. But if you look at
Back. Do you want to hear what my findings are?
Okay.
Okay, so remember, what I took was an underripe flower. So we were questioning on whether or not it would come to fruition even just on its own, because I was taking a flower that wasn't really as mature as it could have, should have been, right? Okay, so what I'm finding is when I try, I can extract seeds from it. Are those seeds viable? I don't know, but they look like mature seeds. My recommendation would be that if I was going to plant this with the intention of producing another plant with it, I would leave it as it is. And basically, when the time came, I would just crumble what I have into the dirt and hope for the best. But when I mash it down, I have gotten 3 seeds out of it, out of the test bud that I took. Does that make sense?
Okay. And is there anybody on the Zoom tonight, though, who has some sort of rule about knowing, oh, if you're going to take seeds from a plant,
Well, you know,
signs or something that it's ready?
Michael, I notice that usually when seeds are ready, they tend to fall off.
Agreed.
And
Right.
so, but sometimes you can't let that happen because it's too wet, or, you know, the weather isn't right and the seeds are just going to rot. So, but that's one way that I can tell. A lot of the flowers we have, when the seeds form and they're ready, they just drop. And some will drop early. So the rest are essentially ready. So you know that it's probably a good time to pick them.
I think that it depends on the plant. I think that the type of plant makes a huge factor in this. I mean, romaine, it's really easy to tell when the romaine seeds are viable and ready to be stored and all that. But when you're dealing with something that's more delicate, like amaranth or lamb's quarters or that family of amaranth, I think that it becomes a little bit tricky. Have you tried Googling if there's techniques to do it? Because I have found that anytime I've wanted to save seeds, if I Google how to save the seeds, I can find a recommendation on how to do it. Examples are ground cherries and tomatoes. They take a special technique to save. So I Googled how to do that, and now I have ground cherry and tomato seeds.
So Michael, if you're also thinking about, you know, the seeds for consumption and using those, I mean, obviously you need a lot of amaranth to be able to eat them. But even if you have a little bit of them, they're really nice to add to soups or anything you're cooking. And what you can do, and it actually also helps to harvest the seeds, but I don't know how viable they are at that point. I don't like you guys know I don't plant anything. But what you can do is wait until the plant is relatively dry. And as other people have said, until the seeds are almost kind of like falling out. And you can actually shake the plant into a bowl and collect them. And then you can start kind of taking some seeds and moving them between your hands. And then that outside, which are now, I'm super tired, so I forget the outside term, but the seed itself is heavier, right, than the husk. So the husk will almost like fly into the wind, and you're gonna be left with the seeds in your bowl. That's kind of like the old way that people used to do it, and that we've done it before, and we've had like tons of amaranth.
Thank you.
I save some of the flower seeds from the garden, and my rule of thumb is that the seed pod needs to be brown. It needs to look, pretty dead. And if they're really fine seeds and you're not sure, one thing you can do is take those mesh bags that you use to put your greens in, and take a section where there's seeds developing and tie that over it. Because when they start to fall, that's going to hold the seeds. They're not going to all end up on the ground, or the birds aren't going to eat all of them. But they do, they need to be very developed. The seeds that cell seed in the garden are things we leave there that really the plant pretty much gets frosted, died, and everything is very dry by the time we take it out. I doubt if those are ready. Looks way too healthy. And
the seeds that I was able to extract from the lamb's quarter that you gave me, which was an immature flower we were questioning, were brown, and I would assume that they are viable, but they did not come easily. I feel like a viable seed comes easily.
It does. It does. It probably needs another week or so. Like I said, test some, contain a piece of it so that as they fall out, that way you'll know that they're getting close or they're ready.
Okay. One thing I want to say is the leaves on that plant are edible. We can eat all of those leaves, and they taste good. They cook up, they turn green. I know there are people out there who try to get as much purple as possible into their diet. And then when they turn green after you're cooking them, they're sort of questionable of whether it qualifies as a purple contribution to the diet or not. But all of those leaves are edible. They taste good, they have a good texture. And so from late summer into this time of year, it's a really easy leafy vegetable to grow. So if anybody wants to stop by and get some of those seeds, maybe wait a week or two.
I would just as a general notification to everybody that's on this Zoom right now, if you get an invitation to go to Michael's garden, you should take it, because that space is amazing and you want to spend time in it.
I appreciate that, Shannon. Actually, a lot of the people have already been here. Not everyone, but everyone's welcome to visit. Let's see. And folks, does anyone have any other questions?
Oh, I had one question. I realized today I did not order my garlic. I don't know if anybody else is in that position, but has anybody ordered recently from a place that still has garlic? Because I know as it gets late in the fall, a lot of places run out.
I had that problem. I went to order and everything was gone. But one of the couples in our garden group got garlic from, I have the email of the place, and they're at the Sussex Farm Market. They were last weekend, I think next weekend, and they have garlic. They have a website you can pre-order. They picked mine up for me and it looks like nice. It's not, I don't think it's overpriced. They had like 3 large bulbs for $5, and they're nice sized bulbs. And they had the German hardneck, a French version. I forget. I'll look up the order and let's see, it might be here.
I didn't try it yet, no. I just realized it about a half hour ago.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, but you guys are also saying that is there like a special seed garlic, or you're just looking for nice garlic?
Oh,
In
We're
general.
talking about seed garlic.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah. we
I
can
never
plant-
ordered from Hudson Valley Seed Company before, but I decided to get my garlic from them this year. So I'm not sure if they still have it, but they might. Hudson Valley Seed.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we take some of our garlic that we harvested right now and plant some of that, but we usually put some new garlic in as well. So I wanted to get some new garlic.
Wait, I was told the second week in October. Is it time to plant garlic? Bill?
Yeah, it's close, very close to the right time. It depends, but that's close.
Or by Halloween, I guess, right?
Or even later.
Yeah.
You don't want it to grow too much if it gets warmer. You'd like it not to be standing out of the ground a lot over the winter, although it usually survives.
Maybe next week plant it.
No, you could wait another couple of weeks.
Another couple of
I
weeks,
think,
thanks.
yeah.
Sorry, I could give you some of mine. I didn't order that much this year.
Well, folks, we're at 8 o'clock, almost 8 o'clock. That means it's time for us to do the shimmy in place, and then we'll come back for the, we don't really have announcements this week, but we'll have, hopefully we'll have a couple weekly updates. Steve and Bill, are you folks up for doing weekly updates this week?
Sure, I am.
And
Yeah,
Alice, do you have something for us on?
I really don't have anything to give an update on. I'm winding everything down because I'm going to be moving in the next couple of weeks. So there's not much to report from me other than saying that I pretty much shut down my garden and hope the new owner of my property is going to enjoy a beautiful organic garden.
Well, we want to hear about that.
Steve, why are you leaving us, Steve? Where are you going?
I'm going to greener pastures. I'm going to go garden in the winter in Florida.
Oh.
Will be missed.
Thank you.
But you can still call in.
Yeah,
You can make us all jealous.
If there's going to be a Zoom session in 2 weeks, I'll try to join that. That'll probably be my last one up here.
And then you can send us one with next year, pineapples and all different type of farming.
Yeah, it's possible. One quick note. I'm looking at garlic from the Potato Lady of Maine. I don't know if anybody's ordered from that vendor, but it looks like they still have some garlic left.
So I found my information. It's Sue and Farmer Rich. Their phone number is 973-219-4354. Their website is jerseygrown.com. They have pictures and an order form on there, and they are at the Sussex County Farm Market, I believe, next weekend also, down in Augusta, New Jersey, which isn't that far.
Can you use that phone number again?
What is the website again?
Jersey Grown.
Jersey Grown,
Thank you.
one word.
And I've often gotten garlic from Keen Garlic, and I just noticed they still have plenty. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
Can you read that? Can you read that phone number again, Sarah?
973-219-4354.
Check the chat.
This couple in our group have gotten, he's like a garlic nut. They put in like 200 bulbs of garlic, but he's gotten their garlic before, and I mean, they were very nice. They were responsive. So, and as I say, I've got my bulbs. They look good. They're not puny or ratty or anything. They look like nice, healthy bulbs. And it's an organic farm.
Very good. So as we know, it's really hard on human health to sit still for a whole hour. We want everyone to stand up, do the shimmy in place as much as we're tired of sheltering in place. Let's hold on. Who's sheltering in place anymore? I am. But stand up, move around for 2 minutes, come back, and then we'll do the weekly update.
I don't know if I'm gonna say it. Maybe not. Okay, so I I know what you're gonna say, so we gotta leave.
Mr. Harris feels bad. Here.
We were all shimmied.
Yeah.
Okay, so welcome back. Hope everyone's back. So for our weekly update, we're putting Sarah on the spot. What's happening in the community garden now, Sarah?
The community garden is slowly winding down. We've gone from 3 sessions a week to 1 session a week. Tomatoes are still ripening. The sunflower, we had a lot of sunflower plants. Those are gone. We pulled all the beans this last week. There's peppers still ripening. We're going to plant the garlic this coming Sunday. And we have fall greens that some have grown. Some spinach is coming up. And one zucchini plant kind of survived the frost. So we're still going. We go until things pretty much die or it gets too cold, and then we call it quits.
Very good. Why did you pull all your beans?
Because I only put in beans once this year, and they produced all summer. They were like the most amazing ever producing beans ever, but they were worn out. So we pulled them out.
Pole beans or bush beans?
Bush beans.
Wow, okay.
We don't usually raise pole beans. Our fence, we've been advised not to be growing a lot of vines on our fence. Our old fence got kind of really decrepit, and we put in that new fencing, I think a year ago or so. So we try not to put a lot of viney items on that fence. But no, I've never had, I put in bush beans once in the end of May when we opened up, and then a couple weeks after that. And they just kept producing. It was unbelievable. The never-ending beans. After a while, we got tired of them. And the tomatoes, we had a huge amount of tomatoes. Pulled out 1 row and left 2 rows to keep ripening.
And you folks were sharing with the community, with the
yeah, pantry.
weren't you?
Right.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
That we stopped, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. I mean, the tomatoes are really diminishing, but they haven't completely given up yet. Our celery did well this year, so we've got a new batch of celery coming on. The mystery is these Brussels sprouts. I have never seen Brussels sprouts that have not, they don't have any little sprouts growing on them. They're huge plants, but they haven't produced. So I don't know if anyone's ever had that problem.
Okay, well, it sounds like you've gotten a goose egg on that one.
Yeah, really.
Although it looks like Alex has a dog in the background Alexander has a dog in the background who maybe has some opinion, but looks a little shy to present on that.
She's a puppy. Yeah, and this is the most still she's ever been. So that's why she's in here right now.
Okay. Well, should we go over to Bill next for what's happening in his garden this week?
Okay, well, I'm cleaning out some of the summer stuff. Some of it's still okay because I covered it. We had like 4 days of frost about a week and a half ago. And that took out a lot of the summer stuff, to say the least. We still have summer stuff in the greenhouse. I have a 16 by 18 foot plastic covered greenhouse, and there's tomatoes and peppers and eggplants still coming fine in there, which will probably go for the rest of the month. And then I have under the fabric my stuff that I'm going to plant into the greenhouse at the end of October. And that includes a lot of brassicas, but a lot of kale, chard, let me see, what else? Kale, chard, escarole, a lot of greens. And what I found over the past 5 years is that if I grow them in the fall and I transplant them at the end of October into the greenhouse, they are big. I mean, I have to do it on a cloudy day, but they last all for months. And I just eat off of them over the winter, because in the winter, there's not enough sunshine to allow things to grow really well, even in a greenhouse. So basically I do that, and half of the greenhouse is new things like spinach and lettuce that grow slowly, but then are ready usually in February, March, and April. So that's my plan, and that's how I do my winter garden. Essentially, I try to eat the greens all winter. So, I've been doing that.
Maybe you should have told Steve about that before I moved down to Florida. They have a lot more mosquitoes down there.
It's more work. It's probably easier to do in warm weather, no question. But it can be done up here without, it's not as much work as it might appear, because there's not a lot to do. Most of the time you're just harvesting for the first couple months. And after that, you're still harvesting. You don't have to water much. If it gets warm, you have to open the greenhouse and vent it. But other than that, there's really not a lot to do. So anyway, that's about it.
Very nice. Alexandra, what can you tell us about foraging these days?
Yes. So, well, I do still want to talk about Goldenrod because I missed a few meetings. But next time, and if you're out there, you could be looking for some autumn olives, which are really, really nice to harvest at this time. I'm actually going to go in Warwick at the spot I usually go to this week or next week. So I'll let everybody know if anybody wants to come and harvest some with me. So I'll be talking about that in 2 weeks. But now I'm just going to talk a little bit about Goldenrod. Michael, if you don't mind allowing me to share my screen, that would be great. Let me make sure I have all this set up. Okay.
For Linda, who's new, I just want to explain. Alexandra is our foraging expert.
Oh,
She's talking about what you can forage locally and in season. So it's sort of like a weekly update.
Thank you.
And Linda, I live in Central Valley, so I'm not too far
Oh,
away.
you're my neighbor.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. There we go. All right.
Goldenrod.
All right. So Goldenrod. It is the sun medicine of fall. So I'm sure we all know what goldenrod is, and we've seen it everywhere during this time of year, from August to about mid-October. There's really over 60 species of goldenrod that bloom all around us. And most of those are native to North America. There's only one species that is native to Europe. But of course, now they're propagated all over. And goldenrod, many people believe that it is responsible for the hay fever and allergies that we all experience during this time of year, which is a bit of a misinformation. As we know, it really is ragweed who's responsible for those allergies. And really the difference there, and the reason why goldenrod is so effective against allergies, is because it is not a wind pollinated plant. So ragweed is wind pollinated, therefore all of that pollen ends up in the air, just like the tree pollen in the spring, which is ultimately what creates, irritation and histamine release from people. But goldenrod is not wind pollinated. It actually has very, very sticky pollen. It's probably some of the most nourishing pollen that any plant offers during this time of year. So it's kind of like the last chance for pollinators to get that energy and nourishment before the winter, before most of them go into hibernation effectively. So it has this abundant pollen, and any species in the Solidago species is going to be interchangeable in terms of how we can use it. The easiest way to identify goldenrod or any Solidago species is to look for them small yellow flowers. Some of them have many, many petals, but most of them will have kind of two petals that are kind of like twins together, and then a few of those like twin petals arranged in a circular fashion. They all have, these like abundance of flowers, and they are in the Asteraceae, so the daisy family. A lot of the properties of goldenrod were actually really, really important back when goldenrod was not discovered, but was initially learned about from the Europeans when they came here. And they've realized that there was such a strong, popular native use of this plant, mostly used for respiratory infections, as well as for urinary health, particularly to heal anything that has to do with the kidneys. So anything that is not processed by the kidneys, with this, buildup of calcium, of kidney stones. Goldenrod is a very, very effective diuretic. It also nourishes the kidneys. So when they brought it over to Europe, they began selling goldenrod, and it was fairly expensive. But goldenrod is such an effective, has such an effective way to reproduce that actually many, many species were brought over very easily and started propagating throughout Europe. And when people realized how abundant it was, it really fell out of fashion, because you can't really sell something that everybody can get out of their door. But it is a very, very, very effective remedy. And unlike other herbs, which need to be tinctured or need these like long processes to extract the medicinal qualities, goldenrod is very effective even as a tea. So you can make a strong tea out of the flowers. Now, if you're looking for those anti-allergy properties, it's really nice to get that pollen. So I'd like to harvest it before the flowers open. Right now, you'll still find some plants that have unopened flowers, and I usually just harvest the full the full flowering top. I've seen people harvest like little like stem by stem. It's really inefficient. Just harvest as much as you can. It's really, really abundant. You will never get to like harvesting more than 1/3 of an area to begin with. So you can make a strong tea out of it. It's a very, very sweet flavor, very calming. Just be aware that it is a little bit of a diuretic. So compensate by staying hydrated. It also is a really effective wound healer. So there's definitely other plants that are, much more famous and usable from that perspective, things like yarrow, for example. But if you're, out and about in the wilderness and you fall or you scratch yourself and you have some goldenrod available, those leaves, oh, Mia. Sorry, my dog is just like banging her head against everything possible in this room. The leaves themselves can be packed into a wound or even poulticed over an area such like a bruise or a sprain, and they will really start healing that tissue and that flesh. The other thing I was going to mention is that goldenrod, because it's associated with the kidneys, it also helps us release the emotions that we're keeping in. And oftentimes, when we kind of look at the progression of the seasons, fall, right, is like the time to harvest. So it's really a time of like to express what we've been nourishing this whole time. So so if you want to work with goldenrod in more like energetic perspective, it's a really wonderful plant that allows you to release emotions or to release anything that you want to put out there. So she's really wonderful to work with. If you want to also work with this plant as a digestive aid, so most bitter plants like dandelion, for example, right, they encourage those digestive secretions, which really eases digestion. And if that's something that you want to do, you can also harvest the root as well as the stems and make those into a tea and get that bitterness. Not as delicious as the blooms, of course, but it's a really effective digestive as well. And that's what I had for this week. I'm gonna stop sharing if there's any questions.
You're amazing and I appreciate you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And I'm super excited because, I'm definitely more of an herbalist and a forager, but the fall is a time for roots. And so I become a bona fide forager during the fall. So I'm really excited to talk about those in the upcoming months. Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, we want to talk about what we're doing. I mean, unless there are any other questions for Alex. And Alex, next time I hope we should make sure everyone knows your phone number and email address in case someone wants to contact you for about how to use these things medicinally.
Yes, absolutely. And also if you're interested to be added to my newsletter, email me as well. And I do hold classes. I'm going to start doing them again in person at my home, and we'll be doing some more workshops. So if you're interested in that.
If you want to put that in the chat, great.
Yeah.
I would like her email. Can someone pass me her email so I can get on the newsletter list?
Yes, I will. Let me send you, I will chat my email, and then you can also private chat me your address and I can add you.
Thank you, Miss.
You are welcome.
So next we wanted to discuss, how we get our gardens ready for winter. We talked about composting leaves earlier. I just shared a link to a YouTube video on Mike McGrath talking about how leaves are the ultimate composting substance. This video has been watched a lot, so I encourage people to check that out. And I guess what I like to do is mulch my beds with different things for the winter. what do other people think of doing what's the best way to mulch a bed for a winter, and what are the other things you do to get your garden ready for winter?
Sarah, do you guys put living mulch, or what do you guys do for the community garden?
We clean up, pull up the wheat. You have to remember, by this time of year, the weeding is not as gung-ho as it is earlier in the season. So as we pull the plants out of a bed, we weed it, rake up all the debris that's there, and then we still have a pile of, it was some composted manure that we got a couple loads of in the spring. So it has to be wheelbarrowed up. So when the guys are there, that comes up, spread it on the beds and turn it over, and we just leave it. Sometimes we put down some cover crop, but mostly we just, get it ready for spring.
Thank you.
Yeah, I kind of do the same thing. If I can get manure, I spread it on the beds. That's mostly what I do. And then I do a little bit of cover cropping. Usually my beds are in use so late that it's hard for me to cover crop. There's not enough time to grow much in the fall.
Yeah.
What would you cover crop with if you were cover cropping?
Oh, go ahead.
They make mixes. There's a fall mix and there's a spring mix. You can get them from any of the, major seed growers. I would just, for a home garden, I would make sure it's a blend and it doesn't have anything that's too aggressive in it. That's the only thing, I would recommend.
And when you guys do you guys pull out everything, but do you leave some of the roots in the ground, or you pull everything up?
No, the only thing we don't pull are the kale, the spinach. There's a few things that are pretty hardy, and we'll put a row cover over those. And usually we don't go into the garden in the winter because remember, it's not next door. By the time it snows, who's going to shovel a path up that hill? It's a little different when it's not in your backyard, but I've had like nice little crops of spinach there waiting in the spring when we open up.
I use a lot of row cover.
I
use a lot of row cover.
Yeah.
I use straw as my mulch, and I generally use a lot of row cover, but I'm in the backyard.
Oh yeah, it's like I said, it's really different in the backyard. Plus the colder it gets, we're only going out once a week and no one is really gung-ho about doing a lot of work once it gets to be mid-November on Sunday morning. I do leave one strip that's kind of wild because, it's been advised by many naturalists and people who are keeping the bees and the beneficial insects alive. If you strip everything bare, you're taking away the homes of some of those native bees. So there's a type of a little strip that's kind of wild that has a lot of mint in it and kind of aggravates people because it's messy. But it's really good to, allow a little area like that because we have a huge number of bees and pollinators in our garden, which is helpful. And they found that it's believed that with the suburban landscaping, everything native and all those little weedy things being ripped out all the time, that's taken away a lot of the habitat of our native bees. So it's okay to be a little messy.
I like the idea of leaving a strip in the garden. I also think that somewhere around the world, we should have whole fields like that. That, we should have whole open meadows that have that sort of pollinator-friendly habitat, intentionally.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are spots. Like I live down on Elm Street in the village, and that whole swath that goes up the railroad tracks from Elm Street up past Jones Chemical and out towards the school. That's a whole natural swath of just native weeds, wildflowers, whatever you want to call them, that, you know, runs right through the village. There's spots like that around, you don't realize them that much.
Right. Someone was talking about, I heard somebody give a talk on urban trees and the value of, and putting dollar amounts on having trees in downtown areas. And at the end, somebody said, you know, they just cut down 6 acres of trees next to me. What are you doing putting up 2 trees and talking about how valuable it is? So, you know, around here, we have a lot of preserved lands.
Right.
So it's good to, in your garden, to, you know, have some things. And like Shannon was particularly appreciated that I grow a lot of, I forget what I grow. What was it I grow, Shannon, that you really liked? The oregano. I have, you know, oregano's growing in the yard everywhere.
Oh yeah, it goes like crazy.
And but the bees on that, they go nuts. You can sit by a patch and see 4 or 5 different kinds any time of day. It's really awesome.
Yeah.
So the little things like that are good, but also the big fields are something we have to, and the passageways along the railroad tracks is something we have to do. So we're getting close to 8:30. Is there anything else anyone wants to contribute about getting ready their garden ready for the winter?
So the key is leaves. Tons and tons of leaves.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a little
And
spoiler alert.
manure, and you just put the manure on top, or do you dig it in at this time of year?
Dig it in.
Dig it in.
Here, a little spoiler alert on that video I just sent a link to. The guy talks about how every year the trees send their roots deeper and deeper into the soil to reach minerals, and then they express those minerals up in their leaves and drop them at your feet. And then most people get out their leaf blower and just sort of blow them onto the neighbor's property. But there are better things to do with those.
Please. I have
Yeah,
a leaf blower that's been going on for like 20 years in my neighborhood with the neighbor across the street. Don't talk about blowing them in my yard.
So let's see. 2 weeks from today, we will have another Zoom garden session. In November, you know, as Sarah was saying, it's a little bit hard to get out, people roused up to get out in the garden then. What we'd like to do is meet just once. And if I was supposed to hear from you today, but I didn't. Somebody from the Orange County Cornell Cooperative Extension has a Zoom presentation on composting.
Oh,
great. So we thought that for a November meeting, that would be pretty cool. And then probably we'll take December off. And then in January have a talk about seeds and what we're purchasing and getting our seeds ready. And maybe February, something on garden planning. And then of course, March, we got to get back in and roll the sleeves up and be ready to go again.
Sounds good.
But before we order our seeds in the winter, we have to make sure we remember what did really well and share that information. Like, I think your provider beans sound really fabulous.
So just to confirm, the next Zoom garden plot poll meeting will be the 19th of October.
And unless some religious holiday falls on that day, yes. That's when we'll do it. We're sorry, because we scheduled for last Monday and then we realized we people had a holiday to celebrate, and so we changed. All
right, thank you guys.
Closing questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Pleasure meeting everyone.
Pleasure
Thank
meeting
for
you.
being included.
Have a good week.
Thank you.
All right.